£2 billion closed.
And that was 2 billion for myself and then 2 billion for my team as well. So that's 4.
Why the decision to homeschool your kids? If you were to make a case to someone who is absolutely certain that God does not exist and they're an atheist, what would your case be?
It's an incredible question.
If you were to leave a message right now to that camera for your newborn baby that she can watch on her 18th birthday, what would it be?
For 18-year-old you, if you were to watch this.
This is the story of a man who was born to a father who escaped the traumas of Palestine and grew up in the United Kingdom's poorest town, to having his first kid at just 17 years old, getting married and divorced by 21 years old, and turning his life around by age 25. This is the story of a sales leader who found God, closed $2 billion in spend, and is now a father of 5, Jordan Rassas, or as most people know him, the Lion Glass. A man dedicated to his mission to build the UK's largest sales company and university, the Lion's Den, and to change the world in ways that many of us could never even imagine.
6 months ago, we filmed a podcast with the Jordan Rassas, and we said at some point down the line we'd be joined by him again. And here we are today, a little bit sooner than we once anticipated, but here we are. Welcome, Mr. Rassas, and congratulations on your newborn child as well.
Yeah, thank you.
We were meant to do this last Friday, but the baby decided to come along, so we had to reschedule it. But dude, it's great to have you back. That first podcast was potentially one of the best that we've ever done, and probably the one that we got the most feedback on and the most new viewers from. So it's good to have you back, dude.
Perfect. No, it's good to be back. Like I say, she chose to arrive a week early. It slowed us down, but only for a week, and she's with us today. But it's just couldn't ask for anything better. The house is peaceful. Business has been flying in that 6 months. The family has come on great. So yeah, it's fantastic to be back.
So talk business to us, because last time we went for food after the first podcast, and you kind of teased this idea of launching the Lion's Den. And at the time it was just an idea, but now you guys are one of the top earners on the platform that you're on, and it's launched successfully. So talk us through it.
Yeah, so I mean, the whole Lion Glass brand that you see, we're probably 1 year into a 5 or 6 year journey, and a plan that I established. Step 1 was to become known worldwide in the world of sales, to be known as an authority figure, to be surrounded by people who are either on their journey, about to start their journey, or already smashing their journey. If you look at where we're at now, the social media accounts are smashing it. They're generating 10 million impressions a month across all platforms. And we've used those social media accounts to launch a business, a business with a number of different arms. So we have our main business-to-business sales enterprise, Lion's Den Business. So we're targeting businesses. I've got two teams of cold callers, a team of closers that are selling all sorts to businesses, sales training, recruitment, outsourced sales. And we've also launched the Lion's Den University. So we launched that, I think, 10, 15 days ago. That's grown already to hundreds of paying members. And yeah, we just couldn't ask for anything better. The business has gone in the last 6 months from an idea to nearly 40 full-time members of staff. And the growth plans next year are set to see us, hopefully hit 3 figures in terms of staff numbers as well.
What's the process been like in terms of fast tracking that? Because it's not really been long at all, and you've done so much in that short amount of time. So I guess from then to here, what are the steps that you kind of took to get you there in the first place?
First things first, it's been relentless. I think this doesn't get spoken about enough, but success is doing the same thing again and again and again and again. People think that I wake up and jump out of bed. Oh, I'm the Lion Glass. I'm full of energy. Let's go. Let's attack the day. 2-3 days out of 7, the same as everybody. I want to stay in bed. I have that voice in my head saying, oh, the same thing again. But you've just got to do it. You've got to be that person. So I think the first thing I'll say is it would be incredibly boring if you was to watch from the outside looking in. People often say, oh, he's got a cool life. I'd like his life. They wouldn't, because from 6 a.m. probably until 2 a.m. the following day, it's just been call after call after call. I've been locked in. I was knowing that the baby was going to arrive at around this time. So I knew that I just had this sprint that I needed to go hell for leather, leave no stone unturned. So it's been, relentless in terms of our social media growth. You know, the Instagram team are posting 5 reels a day, every single day.
I was
And
gonna
they're good
say.
reels as well, dude.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
like they're just spamming out some CapCut made content. It's good stuff.
We've built a solid team. We've got a really good team of professionals around us, you know, and the stuff that we're posting, that's not even a third of what we're creating and we've got in the backlog. We've got videographers now that are effectively becoming part of the family. We've got just a really tight-knit team. And I just think, I guess it's been tiring. It's been stressful in the sense that when you're the business owner and when you accumulate more and more people who are dependent on the business, and, you know, you've got families, that's when the pressure stacks up. But just absolutely loved it, you know, and the momentum's growing again and again and again. We've got a role that we advertised, and on Monday I've got 45 people in one group interview for a commission-only role. So
Yeah, that's crazy.
I really do think it is just the start. So it's an exciting time.
What's that transition been like for you, going from, you know, you previously worked in quite a corporate role, you know, you use social media anonymously, to transitioning to being the business owner yourself and then having a company that is powered by social media? How do you think you have grown, and how are things different to your previous roles? Do you enjoy it more? Do you find it easier, or do you feel like you have more responsibility now?
Yeah, no, good question. So for me, I think the reality is I was always, and for those that don't know, I was always a very good sales closer and then a head of sales in companies that were owned by VC companies, venture capitalist firms. So I was always very much restricted. You know, we had processes we needed to follow. There was a way things needed to be done, and if you tried to do it in a different way, you were trying to think outside the box. You were being too creative. And I think first things first, building my own business, building my own team, it's allowed me to do all of the things that I wanted to do. You know, last week I had all of my team. They flew in from around the world to come to the Lake District. We hired out a hotel with swimming pools. We got everyone there, and we just had a good time. We got close, you know, and that sort of stuff doesn't really happen in the corporate world. But I think one of the key things is, I think we're just in this critical time right now where sales is changing. Like this corporate world or remote world, I think the world in general is changing. Companies realized when COVID happened that we had to, companies were told to either shut down or to go virtual. And what they realized was, look, we can go virtual and it will still work. Like, we can sell over Zoom, we can sell over Teams. So I think the opportunity with what I'm building now is for people to just genuinely capitalize on businesses that need remote workers. So I think for me, I think the opportunity is just massive. It's been non-stop. And I think that the biggest difference has been controlling the empire with the freedom. Like, it's just allowed me to build something that people are using as a vehicle to change their lives. It's cool.
So obviously nowadays in the world of sales, a lot of young people start out by kind of going into online sales, remote sales. Obviously, like with me and Charlie, we've both been in places where you might be selling a product or a service or whatever, and people aren't necessarily having that in-person experience that, say, you would have had when you first started. Do you think that's kind of a good thing or a bad thing, or how do you think it is in the sales world? Do you think it's something that is necessary to do well, or do you think it don't matter too much?
No, I think it matters massively. I think I was speaking to one of my old colleagues the other day who started out in sales at the same time as me, and I was saying how bad it is for people starting in sales now that they don't have that office environment. They don't have that environment that they can go into and watch 100 other salespeople doing the job day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. Because the amount of lessons I teach today that I learned myself from observing people, where are they going to get this? One of the key things that's helping my business grow at the rate it's growing is, despite the fact that we're remote and we're all around the world, every day we have a mandatory call where every single member of the team joins, respective, you know, into their department. We have a call for the outbound appointment bookers, a call for the closers, a call for the USA-based appointment bookers. And every day what I'm trying to do is get them to replicate that office environment. So there'll be an agenda where on a Monday maybe we'll discuss the week ahead, what's everyone's goals, what's everyone's plans. On a Tuesday I'll say, right, everybody bring an objection that you had, and we'll all discuss, you know, one by one each objection so we can understand what the best response was. We can all bounce ideas off each other. On a Wednesday we'll then discuss something successful that we all did. And I think the key thing that we've noticed since implementing that is the difference between the number one on the team and the bottom of the team is always less than 10% because everyone's now still learning from each other. When I get involved with businesses that don't have that, the number one thing that the sales team is suffering from is they're just working as loners. They're all just disconnected. They don't really have anyone. They don't even have anyone to share the good news with.
Yeah.
Like when they get an appointment. And I just think that's tough for people. Yeah, big time.
I think so. Having that kind of, even if you're in a remote space, having that communal aspect around it, or just having people to talk to you around you is super important, really.
Yeah, big time. Like I say, the key thing is how many sales lessons I learn, not in a lesson setting, you know, not in a teacher-student type scenario. You're either watching other people deliver something. The amount of sales lessons I learned from, you know, a boss would tell you something, then they'd go, oh, just watch me in this meeting, or just watch me do this. Or likewise, I'd be an outbound appointment booker right at the start. And you just watch the successful people do it. Mm-hmm. And again, for me, it's like, how can we get that? How can we create that? So it's a key thing for people.
100%. So one thing I wanted to ask you actually was, a few people have mentioned this to me when they've seen the podcast and they know who you are. On most of your socials, you got something that says however many billion, 2 billion, 3 billion closed in spend. And to the average eye, it sounds like a crazy amount of money, but most people don't actually have a clue what that means. So if you give like a rough understanding just to people so we know what that actually means.
Before you answer, I want to say, I don't actually think people realise how much money £2 billion in spend is.
Yeah.
You know, I see sales reps and, you know, to their credit, they'll say, 1 million closed. And, you know, that's still a good fee for someone of my age. But then when you compare it to £2 billion closed, that is the scale that we're talking. So I'll let you answer.
Yeah, no, good. And that was 2 billion for myself, and then 2 billion for my team as well. So it's 4. But no, let me give you the breakdown. So I mean, very simply, I was working in the energy industry. It is the UK's most competitive industry. I think today it's still an unregulated industry. There's 3,000 energy companies, all contacting businesses, all annoying them. 20 or 30 calls a week these businesses will get about energy. The businesses I always worked for were some of the largest commodity trading firms in the UK, if not Europe. The very nature of these companies meant that they were targeting businesses with a minimum energy spend of £1 million. The minimum contract, typically, that we would sign would be 3 years, but I would always sell on a 5-year contract, and my teams would always sell on a 5-year contract. So the very nature of us dealing with a small client, no, seriously, like, I would get appointment bookers saying, do you want this one or not? They only spend £800,000 on energy. And again, when you think about a business that spends £800,000 on energy and survives, they probably actually turn over £40 million. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've sold to a business with less than 200 staff. So these are all big businesses, typically minimum a £1 million spend. On average though, my average client was spending £3 million a year. So when you multiply that by 5 years, that then becomes a £15 million deal. You know, and what we were, and in terms of where these billions come from, you know, the largest client that we signed exclusively was nearly £200 million worth of spend. We signed them up for 5 years. So from, I think, 2023 to 2028. So over those 5 years, they entrusted us with £1 billion worth of spend. And we had to go in and sell them on how we were going to trade for them, what the trading methods would likely perform like. We couldn't even tell them what the price was going to be, because how did we know? Because we hadn't even started trading for them, let alone finish it. So we had to go in and convince them with our knowledge on the energy market and our knowledge of trading that the right thing to do would be to sign 5 years worth of spend away to us. And that was basically what it was. So it was all business-to-business energy sales. There was 292 individual contracts that made up that 4 billion. I was gutted that I didn't get my 300, but I moved into a team leader position and then stopped closing. But that's the breakdown.
Why do you feel like you have had so much success in sales as an industry?
I think it's the one industry where the effort that you put in can be a leveler. You know, in football, you've got natural talent, and that plays a big part. Maybe I can't go and be Ronaldo if I put the effort in. But I think with sales, if you put the effort into learning, you can achieve things with this career that 500 years ago you would have had to raise an army and invade a town. And people laugh, like that little chuckle there. When I say that, people laugh, and I say, no, understand this. This is the one career where just through picking up a phone and joining a few Zoom calls, if you dedicate yourself for 5 to 10 years to this career, you can make millions of pounds. Tens of millions of pounds. You can become an asset that can be placed anywhere in the world, at any point, at any time, at any place, and still make £1 million a year. Like, seriously, this is massive. You become an alchemist. You can make money out of nothing. You don't even need products. You can just sell someone else's product. So for me, when I saw sales as a path, I couldn't not go for this. Like, I'm telling you, conquerors of the past would manifest today as CEOs of big sales businesses.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to amass resource. I just saw it as an opportunity for me to actually finally put effort in, finally be recognized. Look, I'll be honest, there's no way I should be able to achieve the things I've achieved. I don't have any supporters. I don't have, I've got a lot of haters, believe me. A lot of people that probably pray for my downfall. But the one thing that I've got is the ability to sell. So it's like, keep praying, I'll keep selling. And we'll see where we end up. And for me, that's the thing. It's lit. I've seen what I can achieve with sales, and obviously I've got a big goal. And sales is that means to an end for me. It's the ability to achieve that goal.
Outside of effort, because effort has to be driven from something. You must have had a why throughout all of your career. What outside of effort, what do you think specifically made you so successful in the industry?
So yeah, I was intelligent. I was very highly gifted at school. I think we talked about this on the last podcast. So I was very intelligent, but my childhood was tough. I spent a lot of my childhood grounded, locked up in a room. I had all of this potential and all of this ambition, but I had no way of just showing it. And when I'm out there and when I'm selling and when I'm delivering, I say to my missus, it's like I'm a dolphin jumping out the water doing tricks. Because when I'm in front of a prospect, I can do things. I can go into a board and I can do things that I've only ever dreamed about. And as a kid, I always knew my mission was to change the world. Right now, my goal is not to sell a few contracts and live a comfortable life. It's to regenerate Palestine, my homeland. It's, when you look at the UK, it's to build parks. It's to, help regenerate areas like Blackpool, where I grew up. So again, for me, sales, it's that means to an end. If I needed to raise an army 500 years ago to do these things like regenerate Palestine, regenerate Blackpool, build schools, help single mothers, then I would do that. But right now I don't need to raise an army, I just need to sell. And that's it. So it's, for me, it's like, I don't know, I believe that I have got a mission. I believe I've got a purpose. I believe there's a massive, I've always thought that there was going to be a mental health crisis where men wouldn't have purpose.
Yeah.
And I even think this career links into that, and this is something that can give people purpose.
Compared to now and your childhood then, when you were growing up, you had a much different upbringing to say how your kids are going to now. If there's kind of like one thing that you learned from your upbringing and kind of how you're going to use that to help with your kids now, what would you kind of say that is?
Yeah, so this is a real life, tough one for me that I was stuck at for a few months, because when you look at my upbringing, I was one of 5 step siblings, and actually another one came along, so that eventually there was 6 of us. But my earliest memory is there was 5 of us living in a 1-bedroom flat, sleeping on a double bed mattress on the floor with 1 duvet between us all. My mum was flipping burgers, and my stepdad was on the dole. And genuinely, that was like my childhood. They used to borrow money off my nana every Thursday. They'd buy meat that was going off, shove it in the freezer and feed it us day by day throughout the week, basically. So for me, I think that childhood, I remember, some of my happiest memories were when we had no money, when all we had was each other. Some of the key, I'm even getting goosebumps now, some of the key memories and some of the most amazing, heartwarming people I met, and I think will ever meet, were those people that didn't have anything. So I think the key thing that having no money and having no luxuries taught me was just being a good person, values. Like, genuinely, in my head, I'm this council house boy that's just ended up in this position. So now when I look at my kids, the same sort of values I was taught. Sharing, we learnt to share very early on. We had to share food. My parents didn't even do those games like eat your food off the fork, I'm looking away, no one steal my food. And then the kid eats it, because my stepdad would say, well, that'll teach him to not share, and we don't have that much of this resource, so we all just share. Come on, everybody, just share. So it's little things like that I learned, that I often think, well, when you are blessed with luxury, how do you make sure your kids have that? How do you make sure they have those traits, that they have that work ethic? We all grew up and were taught to work hard. So for me, I think, again, every single day, I'm homeschooling my kids, so we're teaching them how to react, how to act, and luckily we've got absolute bundles of joy, so we are pulling it off. But I do think a big thing of what I'm trying to do is make sure that they don't have some, what would you say, comfort upbringing that will then mean they don't go on to have this same kind of mentality I've got.
I think there's quite a big paradigm in society that people think that if the rich are bad, right? And that you are either a billionaire on Wall Street smoking a cigar, or you are someone who is meditating, and you are someone who is spiritual and you don't really care about money. But something that really strikes me about you is that you seem to have really maintained a set of core values despite being able to get to where you are in life. Mm-hmm. And how do you maintain that authenticity, and how do you stay true to your values while still chasing this grand goal? Because like you said, you still see yourself as a little boy from Blackpool, but then you're not that anymore. You've kind of you've had an alchemy of self, and you've turned yourself into the Jordan Rassas that you are today. But how have you managed to maintain your core values even on this mission?
Because I'm not in love with money. Most people, everything they're doing revolves around money. Fractional reserve currency as a system of trade existed for the first time ever about 400 years ago, and it's probably not going to exist in 400 years. Like, for me, it's not nothing I do is about money. It's about that greater purpose. It's about that goal. So in terms of staying true, I mean, I've always been prepared to burn every single bit of money that I've got. Like, truthfully, I have. I don't care about lifestyle. I don't care about upgrading my lifestyle. You know, I've probably had the best 24 months I could ever have had. I'm still driving the same car I was driving 5 years ago. I'm still living in the same rented house I was living in 3 years ago, 2 years ago maybe. But none of that I even plan on changing, because I'm just not that bothered. I'd sleep on a floor if I needed to sleep on a floor. I really don't care. So for me, I think people end up worshipping money. People end up chasing success for all the wrong reasons, and what they're chasing is some elevated lifestyle for the self. You don't take your money with you when you're gone anyway, so that's not really going to work. Like, and again, for me, it's just much bigger than money. The reason I'm trying to do business and the reason I'm trying to build this is because in our current society, money is power. You know, if you've got money, you can build things, you can change things. I said very early on, Dad, I'd be much more comfortable hugging trees. You know, I'm telling you now, I'm going to be the first billionaire that spends more time barefoot than with shoes on. Like, I love being outside. I love being around nature. I hated the corporate world when I was in it. But I was treating it in my head as like a Viking going on a raid for 10 years and then coming out and then just being willing to use this money to go all in. I'm always prepared to burn everything. And I always will until I get to where I need to get to.
Do you think people are kind of losing that importance of like actual family and family values nowadays then? And rather than maybe, I don't know, even 30, 40 years ago when the primary thing for like wanting to be successful would be I want to provide for my family, look after my kids, maybe leave a business to my family or whatever. And it's now going on to, I want to go and stand in front of a nice car and take a few photos or just stunt on people or whatever. But people are kind of losing themselves in the culture of it all rather than the original values of why they set out on the mission.
Yeah, so people think the devil manifests as a big red guy with horns and a trident, and I think the devil manifests probably as fast cars and a good lifestyle and all these things that you can spend on yourself. And then what you won't realise is you'll get to 30 and this lifestyle of luxuries has resulted in naff all. And actually the things that would have given you happiness, the things that would have sustained that happiness, you've not got, and you've probably run out of time to get them. You know, so again, I think a big part of it for me is these things, people are distracted by things. They don't realise that go and get a Lamborghini on finance and no one will care anyway. Like, truthfully, they won't. And when you're in it, like, nothing will happen. You won't go and pull a load of women because you're driving your Lamborghini. Like, it just won't happen. And I think the reality is it's just got to be bigger than that.
Why do you think that there is such an attraction to, like, primarily young men of that lifestyle?
Social media. Yeah. It's one of the downsides to social media. If you were alive in the 1980s and as a woman and you were reading beauty magazines, the people would have said to you, be careful reading those beauty magazines, because what you're going to see is constant images, constant women that look better than you, but it's not real. They've been edited. They've been airbrushed. I think nowadays, you know, if you follow 30 people on social media and everyone just posts their best one day of the month, that's once a day. That means for every single day that month, you're going to see someone who's quote unquote doing better. They might not be doing better. It's just one day of the month. Now, if you follow 300 people you're going to see 10 people a day that are quote unquote doing better. So then you end up in this rat race. You end up in this competition with everybody. Now, the problem is you used to, let's say you're from a town with 5,000 people in, and let's say you're really good at hosting podcasts. If this was in 1994, right, and you were really good at hosting podcasts, I mean, that's a crazy example because they wouldn't have been a thing.
You were a radio
but no, let's stick with it.
Yeah.
We're sticking with it. We're sticking with the podcast thing, right? So let's say you were. If you were from your little town with 5,000 people, you'd have been walking around like you were a hero. Everyone would have been like, there's Charlie, there's Jacob, these are the boys that can do podcasts, they're smashing it. All of a sudden now, you might be the best in your town at podcasts, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because in one day, someone can go and see 1,000 other podcast hosts, 10,000 other podcast hosts. So the competition pool has just grown massive. This is one of the downsides to social media. You know, I can be a salesperson doing well with a good job, and in one day, if I'm in the right communities 99% of the time, in one day I might go and see 10 people who are doing better than me, and all of a sudden I think that I'm not doing well. And it's just this really unsettling position. So I think that's what's causing people. I think there's a pressure, there's a growing pressure on young men to appear successful. And I think their mechanism of appearing successful is to buy luxury goods, because that's what all of the cool guys on YouTube are driving around in, and that's what they're all wearing. And they think that's what women want to see. So then it just becomes this status hierarchy.
Yeah.
That's not even real anyway, and it was created by brands and luxury goods. It's a trap. It's horrible. And, you know, that's a big part of what I'm about. I want to tell young people that's not what it's about. Like, learn to cook a good meal and tell a woman that you've got long-term goals and show her what them long-term goals are. That's actually going to be better for you. And it's going to find you a better person than driving some stupid car on finance that you can't afford anyway.
Yeah.
Where do you think that problem starts?
Finance companies. Like, I think, like, ultimately, I don't think this is a human thing. I don't think this is I don't think this is a natural thing, an innate thing. I think when you look at usury or lending money, there's a very, very good reason why this was outlawed in every single monotheistic religion, and still is in 2 of them. You know, I've never borrowed money in my life to this day. I never have, I never will, hence why I live in a rented house. Like, it's never been a thing that I've done. I think the minute people started borrowing money they didn't have to pay for things that they couldn't afford there and then, that's when problems started occurring. You know, I saw something on Twitter the other day saying, can you believe how crazy and misogynistic the world was? Women weren't allowed credit cards until 1990. And I wrote back and put, can someone explain why this is a bad thing? Like, unless you're a credit card company, why is that a bad thing? Why shouldn't it have been, I can't believe we've just exposed all of our daughters to credit card companies?
Yeah, no.
That's what it should have been. And I was saying 10 years ago, believe me, if this carries on, it starts off with cars, soon you'll have 17-year-olds buying fucking tracksuits on finance. And that's happening.
I was very surprised too. I had a friend who was out in Dubai, and he was talking to me about this car dealership, and he was telling me how much it is to rent a Lamborghini Urus. And, you know, if you were to look on Instagram and you were to look at the typical person who is selling some sort of information or whatever they're doing, they've got a photo of them with a Lamborghini in Dubai. It's like £600. If you were working a 9 to 5 at Tesco every single day, it's only half your month's wages. You could get a flight to Dubai and take a photo in front of your Lamborghini Urus.
It's not even that. Like, value of things now is. I really think society will shift anyway, and material goods are becoming worthless. You know. Phone robberies basically don't happen now because everyone's got an iPhone. House robberies, don't happen. Because, you know, in the 90s, everyone's houses used to get burgled. Because if you had a video player or a TV, you were a target. Now everyone's got an iPhone that's worth $1,000 anyway. So people will just take the phones. And I think what's happening, as these things become more and more accessible, let's face it, someone who's paid their bills for 3 years and worked their way up to crew supervisor at McDonald's, but never missed a payment on anything, and that's got a really good credit rating, based on what I said earlier about me never, ever, ever borrowing money, they would be able to go into a supercar showroom and get approved on finance on a Ferrari faster than me.
Yeah.
With a business that's doing what it's doing. And I think that now stretched over time. This is why I think even material goods, they're just going to become worthless stretched over time, because everyone's going to have them, and no one's going to be asked anymore. So I actually think it's going to be cool to not be asked about that stuff in another 10 years.
I do agree with you on that. I think people are kind of shifting back and realizing what we're talking about is that these things, they don't really mean anything. Like, if you actually meet people in real life and you see what they're like as a person and you spend time with them, you don't really care what car they drive.
I'm telling you now,
100%.
show me a man's outgoings and I'll show you how fucking much of a man he is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a statement.
True.
Show me a man's outgoings and I'll show you how much of a man he is. That's all I need to see. I don't give a fuck how hard he's acting. I don't care about what he's achieved. Show me his outgoings and I'll show you what a man he is. Because if he's paying for shit that shouldn't even be there logically, it's just there for his own little insecurities.
Yeah.
Should be zero. My
like
outgoings are
that.
zero. You could take everything I'm paying for off me and drop me somewhere tomorrow and my life wouldn't change.
Yeah. It's like that saying, like, comparison is the thief of joy. But I think that is kind of the thing that fuels all of this stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
Because it constantly, like, the bar for that just gets higher and higher and higher. So people are spending more and more money on random shit that they don't need just to look better for other people that probably don't care about them.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, I mean, I think it is like Charlie was saying, it is slowly filtering out to a certain degree because some people are realising, like, who actually cares? But I do agree that I think a lot of companies now kind of use that just to promote it to people who easily enticed with it as well.
Yeah.
You have been a very big and outspoken advocate for the UK and how much you love living in the countryside and what it's done for you, for your health, for your family, for your business. I saw something the other day saying that there was over 250,000 British people who had permanently moved over to Dubai, and a lot of them are probably entrepreneurs or people who would have been previously contributing to the economy. What do you think about living in the UK at the moment? Because, you know, we're young guys and I see loads of people in our circles going over to Thailand or going over to Bali because they would rather be there and lower their costs and, you know, be with other like-minded people. But you advocate for, you know, get somewhere in the countryside. So what do you think about staying in the UK or, you know, your experience of living there in the countryside?
Well, first things first, if you want to move to Dubai with your boys, you may as well just start bumming each other nice and early and just go the whole hog, because I think, like, no man ever at any point in history wanted to move to Dubai with his boys. Can you imagine Alexander the Great turning to his generals and going, all right, sausages, can we all move to the Middle East together and quote unquote lock in for 2 years and smell each other's poo in the bathroom that we're all sharing and things like that? It's not funny, it's fucking crazy. No man at any point wanted that. Men always just wanted a wife, children, and to build their own legacy. Where are these guys going to build a legacy? What are they going to do? Go and find a woman in Dubai and have some kids? I don't see many family men doing this. All I see is people that don't have God or don't have families. And I'm not saying it's... Sorry.
I was going to say, as a note, you were in Dubai for a period of your time. So this is, you know, you're not just...
It's cool to leave the UK. It's cool to give the UK shit. It's cool to try and get a tax break, right? Because the UK has high taxes. Yeah, the UK does have high taxes. But when your missus has a baby, there's not many countries you'd rather be in than the UK when that labour's actually happening, no matter what anybody's saying, right? That's the truth. Yeah, the UK has got a lot of bad stuff going down. Where else are you going to live? Do you want to go and live in Russia, do you? Like, go and move there. You might be more politically allied to them. Life is certainly not going to be any fucking easier. 80% of the diet in Russia is homegrown. So what, you're just going to start growing your own food and living in -20 and knowing that at any point you could have missiles landing on you? You know, in the UK, there's not very much, and people hate it. People hate on it all the time. I do. On the fact that you can't protest. There's no freedom of speech. The good thing about that is you're not going to get skinned from head to toe, as you would have if you lived in Rhodesia in the wrong period of time, just because you lived there. Like, I come from a family that escaped the Nakba, that escaped Palestine. And I think what a lot of people don't realise, if you view life just outside of your own lens for 1 minute, is the UK really isn't that bad. And there's a lot of people literally risking their entire life to one day maybe give a child the chance to grow up here. If my dad didn't do that, none of this would be happening.
Yeah.
I'd be in Gaza right now, probably dead. Like, and that's the reality of the situation. I think I work with a lot of guys right now who are in these countries, and they're now trying to come back to the UK, trying to find wives, trying to settle down, trying to find that meaning. So look, if it's for a year or two whilst you're locking in, I was a bit tongue-in-cheek there with the bumming thing. If it's for a year or two locking in and you need to do it, then so be it. But the reality is no one will convince me that needs to happen. You could just go and do it on your own, and you don't need to go to Dubai or Thailand. You can lock in your bedroom.
I think about this all the time. Like, I work 10 to 12 hours a day in my bedroom in my mum's house every single day, and I have done for like 18 months. And when I think about it, I just think all that really matters is the inputs. Like, all that really matters is the work that I'm doing. It doesn't really matter whether I'm doing it in my mum's bedroom or and I actually find that when I go away, I'm nowhere near as productive. I'm nowhere near getting stuff done. And obviously
100%.
there's the argument for experiences and stuff. But
That's it. So that's it. That's when you're moving into a different kind of, if it's a lifestyle thing and someone's aiming at a present day improvement of lifestyle, then yeah. But again, it just depends on the lens that you're looking at. A lot of people tell me they're going there because they're locking in, building a business, doing this, doing that. And it's like, I don't know.
In the last podcast and earlier on, we were talking about how you homeschool your kids. And, you know, as people who are recently out of the education system, what do you think, why the decision to homeschool your kids, first of all?
Yeah. So first thing I'll say on this is I believe everyone's homeschooled. People just don't realise it. Like, the very nature of you two being different, but potentially going to the same school and being in the same class means that you've probably been homeschooled. The actual thing that makes you the person that you are is the environment that you grew up in, the people that you are observing day to day. So then the next question is, well, what's the purpose of this quote unquote school? Well, it's to educate. So then the next question is the right environment, personally for me, on a personal level, for my child to be educated on the curriculum, an environment with 30 other people, and the person delivering the quote-unquote lesson is a person who has tried their best in life, and they're on 32k a year delivering lessons to 32 snot rockets. And it's like, to me, genuinely, like, I think 90% of who you are and how you act as an adult, you are taught at home. People always say, oh, your social skills. You don't learn your social skills at school.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
You learn them from the people you're around. You learn them from the experiences you grow up in. So I think for me, look, any of the subjects that we want to talk to and teach the kids, maths, reading, you know, logic, thinking, science, it could be anything. Like, you can literally teach them so much faster by giving them one-to-one attention, by giving them one-to-one learning. Kids' brains are hardwired to learn from their mum and dad, like sponges. That's all we will have done. They will have just watched and they will have just observed. So I think for me, it's just like, people say, is it hard? Is it difficult? It's just natural. Like, I really do think it's natural.
Yeah. What was your kind of personal experience then with the education system when you were younger, say, I don't know, between when you're a bit more conscious of it, so like 10 to 16 or something like that, around that period of time, how did you find it at school, or how did you, I don't know, just what was it like for you in general?
Primary school was all right. I mean, primary school was nice. I had some really nice teachers. I had some good friends, good stuff like that. But I think the reality is, pardon me, I was intelligent. Like, I was sat in a class with a load of people and I was just learning the textbooks, putting in the answers, and then just distracting everybody because I was bored. Like, it was just a massive waste of time for me. That whole school period could have been concentrated and just packaged up and taught to me by 10. And then I could have just been cracking on with my life. It was just a waste of 15 years, 16 years of my life right now. Like, I have no intention of doing that to my kids. I have no intention of waking my kid up at 6:30 to drop it off at school at 8:30 to sit and listen to a form tutor read fucking 9 pages out of a book to then go and crack on with a load of 45-minute lessons that are actually only about 18 minutes of learning because everything's stop-start. Like, it's just not, I just don't believe that's even, no one can tell me seriously that's even the right thing to do. It's just a nice thing that allows parents to carry on working.
Yeah,
I agree.
100%.
And I wonder how long it will go on for before they are forced to change it. Because it kind of seems like one of those things, right, that it's common knowledge. Like, if you were to ask anyone in the UK, do you think the education system in the UK is the best way of educating kids? I imagine the majority of people would say no.
So here's a fine line. So this is where most people get surprised with my views. I must stress, I do think the education system in the UK is better than most, if not all, education systems in the world. I go back to my earlier point, which is people trying to die to get into the UK. A lot of people move into the UK are doing that so that their kids get a good quote-unquote education. But what I'm saying is I think for not all parents, but for some parents who've got the capacity and the capability, the education system as a whole doesn't really serve anything for these parents and these families, other than maybe networking opportunities at a later date for your child. But I think for the vast majority, I must stress, for the vast majority of parents, it probably is better that they do have some kind of education system for their children to go to. A lot of the people that give me shit over homeschooling my kids, a lot of the time it's just cope that they can't do the things that I'm doing. And I don't blame them, because if they did try to live my life, the kids would probably end up not benefiting their kids, because they probably couldn't. I don't know, maybe they weren't intelligent enough to do the learning, or maybe they are working day to day. So I do think it's a damp for most families. I'm not one of these guys that says nobody should ever go to school in the UK. I don't think that's the case. I think 90% of people that maybe are in these schools should be. And it's good for them, and it's good for their families, and it's a bloody good education system. But I do think 10% of the kids that are in them need dragging out of there.
Yeah, I think
for all sorts of reasons.
I was going to say it definitely depends on the reason, because I can also think of the way that schools used in the UK sometimes is getting kids out of like bad situations, and potentially
it was a goal for me when I was at school. Like when I was at school, I always said I'm going to make so much money that at a point when my kids would be at this school, don't need to send them there.
Yeah.
Because I can teach them or I can help them. But there's no way. Why am I here? I used to sit here as a kid just thinking, why am I here? Why am I sat here? Where's my mum and my stepdad? What's going on?
I think to
I'm
be
in
able
St.
to,
Aidan's. I was like, what's going on?
I feel like if you need to be like to be able to homeschool people properly, I just like what you just said. I don't think anybody can do it is the problem, because I think for a lot of families, if they homeschool their kids would probably just fuck about and they wouldn't learn anything, and it wouldn't necessarily go the way that they wanted to. I feel like you have to have a set thing in your mind of how you want to teach, like what you want to teach your kids for it to work properly.
It's a way of life.
Yeah.
Homeschooling, it's not a thing you do. It's like a way of life. Like we have a really tight family structure. My wife, she's incredible at home and does things I definitely couldn't do. Like she's just incredible at holding it together. But right from the off, throughout this entire podcast, I've got my newborn sat with us. You won't hear her cry once. Like we have a really peaceful home.
Yeah.
Everyone's chilled. We don't go on iPads. We don't have an iPad. There's not even anything like that in our house. My kids don't even know what that sort of thing is. The dopamine receptors haven't been fried. So we're actually set up to learn. We moved to the countryside so that I can take the kids outside, so that we can go walking along nature and see things, And again, I think it's just the whole environment is set up so that it's one where you say most people would piss about or the kids would be difficult. You're right, but we just don't have naughty kids.
Yeah, 100%.
Like I think rule one of kids is to just make your kids someone that you like, someone that you enjoy to be around.
It's one of the 12 rules in Jordan Peterson's first book is don't let your kids do anything that annoys you, because if it annoys you, it's damn how going to annoy other people, because they're your kids and you love them to bits and it still annoys you. So if it's going to annoy you, then it's going to annoy other people as well.
Yeah. And if one of my kids was doing something that was annoying, I would be able to say, why are you doing that? I wouldn't say, why are you being silly? Because we're very careful with our language. But I would say, why are you doing that? That what you're doing there is just going to upset me or make me angry. Is that what you're aiming at? Is that what you want? Mm-hmm. And they'll go, no. And I'll go, well, don't then. And our kids are so emotionally intelligent. And they're so social. Like, honestly, these were the two things I was scared of.
That's the one I was going to ask you about, actually, the social side of things.
Yeah.
Because I've spoke to my mum about it before. Like, she's mentioned that I think maybe if we had more money and stuff when I was growing up, she would have potentially homeschooled me. But I always said to her, like, the social side of things, because you've got to put things in place to make sure that your kid is still social. I guess I don't know how you bring them up as well, but I don't know what your plan is that for when they get a little bit older and stuff like that.
No, I think it's the opposite. So this, again, I think people just, because they've not had data showing them the other side of things, it's just become this thing. Right, okay, here's where I'll go with this. So let's say, for argument's sake, mainstream education was invented in 1920. I don't know, but let's say for argument's sake it was.
Yeah.
Does that mean humans weren't social before then?
Yeah, do you know what?
No, seriously, like, what does it mean?
100%.
Because at a point, humans were sociable enough to survive for 12 weeks on a ship and not rip each other's hearts out. Now we can't even fucking sit next to each other throughout a movie.
Yeah, it's
Like,
true.
so seriously, the thing I always say, I had this realization one day, which was, hang on, humanity has never needed schools to become social. And some of the most social, famous, outspoken people ever had some of the worst school environments ever.
Yeah.
So they certainly didn't learn these social skills. It's something people say. If I said to you, well, tell me how your social skills today were taught to you in school, you'd go, well, I don't know, they just were. And I'd say, well, you're not acting like a receptionist now. Like, you're very much not. You're acting like something completely different. Like, what? So for me, it's like, first things first. Like, the things that I was scared about was, are my kids going to become social? Because that's just what the world tells you. And then the second thing that I was scared of was, are they going to be, like, emotionally intelligent? Or are they just going to be, like, cold-blooded and locked in? The reality is, I'm telling you now, hand on heart, it's not that they're social, it's that you won't find more sociable children. Like, I've never seen children more sociable because they just go out and interact with the world. When I'm going somewhere, I take my kids with me. If I'm going to Sainsbury's, does anyone want to come with me? One of the kids will jump in. Do you want to pay? Yeah, he'll pay. Say hello to someone. We go into a restaurant and on the way to the table, I'll say to the kids, say hello, say hello, say hello, and they'll say hello to everyone. If anything, I'll tell you one thing we've realised, adults need socialising. My kids go up to adults that are sat there having the dinner and go, hello, and the adults are like, what? Because they don't actually know how to speak. And it's like, genuinely, I think, my kids, what are you going to order? Order your dinner then, and they'll order, at 2, at 3, at 4. And we just take them. One of the things that I've been lucky enough to be around some very successful young people, young men, 18, 19, 20-year-old men that were earning $250,000 a year. And the key thing I was saying, I want to meet your dad. And they're like, what? I was like, I want to meet your dad. Why? Just from a personal perspective. I want to see as a father how he raised that kind of kid. It's cool. And all of these dads all told me the same thing. Yeah, we didn't fucking rely on school to raise him or to do his social. We just used to take him out with us. We used to go on loads of holidays. He used to always be with us. He just used to always be next to me. And he just learnt from me. I spoke to him like an adult. I just speak to him. Yeah. I speak to my kids. My kids come in, I'll be on a call with 25 people. There's say hello to everyone. I won't go, say hello to everyone, gawping. I'll say hello to everyone. They'll say hello. They'll come back, they're our staff. Do you know what that means? And the kids will go, no, what does that mean? Okay, so they all work. So some people have jobs, some people these people work for daddy. And the idea of these people working is we make money and they get money and everyone gets money. We build this kingdom. And they just understand. They know. They say hello to people. One of my kids says hello to my mentoring client in Austria, and he was teaching him Austrian. And he's like, it's just crazy. And it's like, oh, hello, Florian, how are you? And it's just a totally different, honestly, the one thing people say is, I can't believe how social these kids are.
Do you know, I think it is, sorry, I cut you off there, but
Go on.
I was going to say, with school, I think it instills this kind of anxiety into people as well, because kids are so bothered about conforming to all these societal school norms of, I don't know, clothes and this and how you should act, and they don't want to break out of it and kind of do something new. Like, for example, posting content when you're at school, for a lot of people, is a pretty big thing. Even for us two, we weren't really doing it when we were at school, because it's so much more of a I don't know what my man who sits over there is going to think and this and that. But I think if you're from a homeschool perspective, you just never have that anxiety in the first place because you don't care about what everyone else thinks because you've been taught otherwise.
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's quite funny. One of my kids, I remember I went to watch a footy match, and one of my kids, the footy player, he was my pal, and he came over at the end of the game, took his shirt off and went to give it him, and my kid went, why would I want that? He went, I'll be honest, he literally just went, it's a sweaty T-shirt. Why would I want that? Other kids would have been like, oh, yeah. But I was just sat there thinking, this is cool. My kid's not asked about footy players and the shirts. He's not bothered. He loved the footy. He said, you did a good game and it was great, but I don't want your sweaty T-shirt, but thanks. And it was just that's cool. Other kids would be gawping, going home, worshipping that. My kid, he's just oh, cool. So that's a job I can go and do. Football one day if I want. Nice. And it's just a totally different, I think the kids are just, you're right. It goes back to that social media thing. There's no need to fit in. They're okay, just being different, being their own people, having their own sort of mission.
I was going to say before, do you know with inheritance tax, right? They just keep putting it up and expecting that that's going to be the thing that is going to level the playing field. But I don't know if you would agree with me on this, but the majority of the stuff that the wealthy or the upper class give to their kids isn't money. it's these skills and these life lessons, and eventually it's the character that you have to become in order to go and get the money and be the kind of person who can network and be the kind of person who can be successful. And that's the thing that the family's passed down. It's not necessarily, you could give, if you gave an idiot 300, or if you left him 300 million or something, he'd just go and spend it.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't know how to preserve it, you don't know how to make it again, it just becomes this thing that you would worship, and it would end up having a hold on you. I don't know if you would agree with that.
100%, yeah. That's like I said, I'm not really bothered what I leave my kids other than lessons and legacy, and that's why I'm doing social media, so they can see every single day the battles that I'm going through, the legacy that I'm trying to build, the trials and tribulations that we face day in, day out. People respond to me on Instagram or they respond to me on Twitter and they don't get it. I follow nobody and I don't care about social media. But one day in 18 years' time, my kids are going to read it and think, oh, that's pretty cool. That's how my dad fought. That's what my dad did. So, yeah, I would totally agree.
I have a list. This full page here is full of a list of questions that don't follow any pattern or any order. Some of them are quick fire and some of them will make you think. So I'm ready to ask you.
Yeah, let's go.
What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received, and who gave it to you?
An incredible question, because I think it's hard to just narrow it down to one single point of advice. I think the biggest thing then would be, my stepdad, who passed away when I was 17. The thing he used to say to me is just always in my head: take a risk. What's the worst that can happen? Take a risk. What's the worst that can happen? He used to say to me, Jordan, we grew up with no money. We grew up with zero. He said, you in particular, you out of all of the other kids, you've got the potential to be special. You've got the potential to go and be a billionaire. You've got the potential to do anything, but you've got to keep taking risks. Keep taking risks. He said, what's the worst that can happen? You go back to your 1-bedroom flat with meat, eating once a week out of a freezer. He says, I just don't think that's going to happen. Just keep taking risks and just always think, what's the worst that can happen? And if that thing is, I might end up with a knife in my throat, maybe don't do it. But a lot of the time it won't be. The worst that can happen will just be, oh, it doesn't work out and I'm back to where I was 3 months ago. Great, take the risk then. And to this day, I have a little thing, see if I can get it out. This is my sort of risk thing now. I have a toothpick that I wear around my neck. It's gold, a gold toothpick, right? And this is worth a year's worth of food, basically. Mm-hmm. And that basically means I'll take whatever risk I need to take in life. Like I'd sell my business tomorrow if I needed to. And I'd put I've even got a 5-year plan that sees me selling a business for 100 million and then putting all that money into something and borrowing rent money. As long as I've got this, I'm okay. And he just taught me that, take a risk. As long as you've got enough money to buy food for a year, for you and your family, just keep taking risks and eventually it'll come off. The people who make it in life, he said, are the people who maybe failed the most. Sometimes they get lucky and make it first time, but they just won't be put down. They won't take no as an answer. He said, and the more you fail, the more sustainable the success will be when you get it anyway. So just keep taking risks. And it's that's the big thing with me and most people. Most people are scared to take a risk. I've never seen a human go all in on themselves and not come out better for it.
Mm-hmm. Love that. If you were to go back to zero tomorrow and you couldn't use your brand, your network, or any of the kind of your reputation from your previous companies, what would be the first 5 things you would do?
What, so like starting all?
So I'm talking
fresh, fully.
No Lions Den, no
but
team.
am I still me? Have I had my legacy?
You're still you. So you just wake up tomorrow, but you've not got any of it.
I'd do it all again. It wouldn't bother me that much. It'd be annoying. This maybe is the first thing. If I woke up tomorrow and everything was gone and it was a dream, I'd be like, oh God, that's annoying. I've lost a year. Doesn't really matter though. I just need to start it all again. So first things first is to start giving out value on social media, to create social media accounts for other people and not for me, and to just start pumping out value. The next thing I would do, if I was to start again, is I'd just be I'd be getting used to being comfortable speaking to the camera. I would give myself a kick up the arse earlier on, and I'd be saying, just get comfortable speaking to the camera. Once you get past the fear of people in your hometown giving you shit, and once it happens and you realise none of it matters anyway, the gloves will come off and you'll just be going.
I feel like we both had this epiphany halfway through filming, not filming, probably after we posted the first podcast. We're like, it don't really matter. Like
Yeah.
nobody actually cares.
Yeah.
And it's like before you have that feeling before you're about to step on camera, like, oh, you got the nerves coming, and you still get it a little bit because it's you're filming something brand new. But now it's like excitement. Before you're thinking, before you post something or whatever, you have that thing of, oh, I don't know what you.
Yeah, no. So I'd be letting that
go.
go. I'd be letting those gloves come off. I think from a sales perspective, much the same. You know, I'd carry on. I wouldn't be pivoting. Sales, I think, is the thing that's exploding. So I would still be going out there. I mean, and chucking out the value. In an alternate universe, maybe I'd just be locked in, closing, still earning money. But I think the reality is, if I was to start all over again, it probably isn't 5 things. It's probably 3 things. Just crack on with what I did with deactivating my social media. That was only a year ago. And then actually just do the same thing I've done. Get a good team around me, get comfortable talking to camera, keep throwing out that value, keep pumping out that value. And yeah, I think it's just a time thing. I think the key thing is, someone said to me the other day, it's incredible how much you've built in 3 months, like what you've thrown together in 3 months. I went, what are you on about 3 months? I went, I've been building this for 14 years, mate. I said, I've been building this since my very first major life experience. I said, so the reality is, I think the message would be, go out, interact with the world, live a life. When you get to 30, it won't really matter if you have to start again. Because I would just do it all again anyway. Because the thing's real. My prep for this podcast was none.
If you were to make a case to someone who is absolutely certain that God does not exist and they're an atheist, what would your case be?
Oh, I'm interested to hear this.
So many, right, it's a good question, and it's like, well, if I could answer that in a sentence or two, I'd be a much greater man than I am today. But I think, okay, so I think for me, first things first, most young people, I say to them, do you believe in God? They go, no. I go, do you want to believe in God? They go, I'm not asked. I'm not bothered. That's a fucking problem. So for me, the first thing I'd say is, well, let's change that mindset to actually wanting to believe. Okay, let's just change it to wanting to believe. And then the next question I'd be saying, and this is what happened to me one day, I just sat there and I just thought, how can it actually all be rubbish? Like, how can it all be rubbish? These books, these texts, these beliefs, they've existed forever. Like, they've survived civilization collapses, they've survived wars, they've created wars. But like, how can none of it be real? The reality is, all you need to do is go outside, look at a waterfall, watch birds flying in and out of it, and just ask yourself, what, you think that isn't an amazing show put on for you by God? The only thing you need to do is watch how a child looks at you when it's your own child. Like, the reality is, God's there. God's there to be seen. You just need to want to believe in him. A lot of these young people, right, I don't need to come up with anything definitive. What I would say to you is, look, let's just pretend then that God's real, and let's pretend he's your best friend, and let's pretend he's really rooting for you, and he loves you even more than your mum and dad love you, or more than they should have loved you, but he loves you more than anything. And just pretend for 2 weeks, and pray to him, and work with him, and live how he would want you to live. And then you tell me after 2 weeks if he's not real. And I'm yet to see someone who's done that come to me after 2 weeks and go, yeah, you're right, it's all a load of rubbish. In fact, that's what I did 6 years ago. Every single person that's ever gone into that exercise with open eyes and an open heart have always come back to me with God in that heart.
If you were to fix one thing about the current education system, what would it be?
It's cool. Good question. I think at the minute there's a lot of negative influence in the world outside of the education system. So on things like social media. So I'll be looking at bringing more positive influence into the education system. You know, people like myself here today, but other things, other business people, people not just in business, people in fitness, people in other areas. I'm thinking like a young kid can go online, watch a YouTube video of a drill rapper driving around in a Lamborghini with a load of chains and think, oh, that's cool, I want a piece of that. But what about if there was someone going into the school that also had tattoos, that was also living a cool life, but that wasn't doing anything dodgy, that was working hard, that had a family, that was trying to build a kingdom? You know, for me, I'd love to see a return. One of the key things that there was in the 1980s, 70s, 90s was home education. That was something that was taught in schools. Most people now, one of the reasons they're not having families, they don't know how to have families. Young dads, they shit themselves. The amount of DMs I get from young dads not knowing what to do with a baby. And young mums, I feel so sorry for them. Like, seriously, they don't have a clue. They get pregnant, they have kicks, they panic, the kicks stop, they panic. Breastfeeding, they don't know where to turn. How to even cook a meal. Most fucking people don't know how to cook a meal.
Yeah.
Like, this is the sort of stuff that was taught at school that we then decided it was okay for the family unit to teach that stuff. But now the family unit has largely eroded in 90% of homes. No one's now brought that back into schools.
Yeah.
And I think that is the key thing. You know, imagine if school also, I'm not saying took on the role of a mum or dad, because it never will. But imagine if school went back to maybe teaching people how to actually build a home life.
Yeah.
And what a home life should even look like. Even when I went to school, we were learning cookery and we were learning things like that. I can't even for the life of me imagine a group of school kids in London making apple crumbles now on a Thursday afternoon.
I mean, even when we were doing it, it was just seen as a bit of a fuck about, like a practical
it was.
food.
So when
type
we were
lesson.
doing it, it was
Right.
learn to cook because you'll get a better wife, you'll have a good family, we'll teach you how to actually cook meals. So when the only bit of fun was the food tech teacher was a bit overweight, and we'd all have a laugh about how she was the one always checking everyone's meals. And she's like, oh, I'll have another taste of that one. But that was it. But actually, it was a really good, and that to me is a big thing. Like, imagine if there was someone showing young lads, how to build a CV.
Yeah.
You know, how to go and interact with the world. It's cool now to say about the money thing and financial education, but that as well. Just genuine preparation for adult life.
Yeah.
That I think would be so much. I think that's even more important than learning fucking photosynthesis on a leaf. That's more important than learning that.
I think it is. It's a big thing that people are missing at the moment, and I think it always goes, especially. Do you know what I was going to say? Young men, but I think young women as well. It's just role models and lack thereof. Like, there just isn't role models for the things that are really
History.
important.
I would add history. You know, when I learnt history, it was my worst subject. Now I love history. Now I'm like a historian. I read history 2-3 hours a day. I didn't know what history was. I think that's another thing I'd teach. Young men in particular, I think, have got this crisis where they don't have purpose, they don't have meaning,
Yeah.
they don't know what it's like to build a legacy, and even if they want to build one, society's shooting them down for it. So I would also try and inspire the next generation of young men by showing them history.
I think a lot of people don't realize that the things and the feelings that they have now have existed throughout time, but just in different circumstances. I think that's why Stoicism took off so much, because you've got Marcus Aurelius sat writing his diary. He's the emperor of Rome, and you've got an 18-year-old kid who can read that and think, hang on, he was writing that 2,000 years ago. And that's how I feel right now. And it almost kind of brings, you know, when you can attach the feelings and how you feel right now to something historically, it becomes kind of fascinating, and you start researching that topic. And I feel like, yeah, you're right. Like, you will read things in history and you'll be fascinated by it because, you know, at the moment you are building an army in the Lion's Den. So you will look at people like Napoleon, Alexander the Great, and you will look at what they're doing and you will think, you know, they are just doing something that mirrors in the modern day what you're building.
So it's just lessons everywhere in history. Like, if I was to, I could go on YouTube now and hold a group of 15-year-olds' attention for as long as any history teacher.
Yeah.
But I would be talking to them maybe about how Napoleon motivated a group of men to run across a bridge in the Battle of Lodi, and what he said when they actually got over the bridge, and how that ignited a spark inside him that he realised he could conquer the world. And what was he thinking? And what did he say to these men? And how did he motivate them? And what did it look like when they were running over this bridge? And that's the sort of stuff that people are like, that's really interesting. That's cool. Yeah, tell us this story. Where was it? Yeah, sure. But it wasn't that at school.
Yeah.
We were learning about the bad things and then just filling in gaps. And
Nowadays as well, like, a lot of these like thoughts and feelings that young men have are kind of I feel like they're being villainized to a certain degree, even though it's things that, like you say, have been going on throughout history. But now if you think like that for some reason, it's like an extreme way of thinking or whatever, when really it's
having ambition is
just
going to
normal.
be seen as extreme soon. I mean, in
Yeah,
10 years, it's
100%.
going to be extreme to be happy. How dare you be happy in a world where there's so much sadness? Like, you must be right wing. I'm telling you, to be ambitious is going to be seen as right wing soon because you're too selfish.
I don't doubt it. I mean, I would argue that it already kind of is.
Yeah.
I would argue that it already kind of is. Next one is that, do you believe that everyone can become successful in life?
Yes. Yeah. Like, yeah, I just think you might have to find what it is that you're going to excel at, but I think everybody excels at something. I think everybody's got a talent, everybody's got a purpose. I don't know what that success, like I say, I don't know what it's going to look like for everybody. And I don't think everyone can follow, I think everyone's got their own path. But yeah, I think, again, going back to that God point, I think that's one of the most amazing, beautiful things about the world. Like, anyone can be successful. The person who delivered my baby the other day was born in Egypt. And I was sat there thinking, this is crazy. Like, what is the chances of an Egyptian lady delivering a baby for a Palestinian guy in North England? And I was like, this is all like, you can just achieve anything in life. It really is just moldable like Play-Doh. But I think part of what you need to do is just find what it is that you're going to be successful in. Find what it is that you're passionate about. And it's not always money. Like, a lot of the time it's not. Go back to that earlier point I mentioned, you know, my stepdad, I believe, was the most successful man ever, because he taught me how to be. He taught me how to be a man. He taught me how to live. So maybe your success metric is having an amazing family and being a good dad. Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Super subjective, isn't it, really? I think like you were saying earlier, though, success nowadays for young people is, people have such a fascination with money. I think people kind of seem to measure their own self-worth and success by it quite a lot nowadays.
Yeah, I think for me, the measure of success is more how close to your potential are you.
Yeah.
Like, that's
100%.
it. You've got potential you that always achieved everything he could ever have achieved if every single like thing went your way. And then you've got you in the real world. And success is how close are you to that potential you. That's it. Nothing else. To that you that you could have been or that God created.
I guess it's like if you want to be, I don't know, say 100-meter sprinter or something, and your aim is to get I don't know if that's realistic, a 9-second time or whatever. If you make 20 grand a month, that's pretty cool. Well, that's not your 9-second time. It's not your aim that you're going to hit.
9 seconds is a
Depends what
crazy
you're
time,
aiming
bro.
at. Depends what you're aiming at, though. Yeah, no, absolutely. It depends what you're aiming at.
Do you believe in astrology?
Yes. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on it, but I think who was the quote by? Is it Buffett or Morgan who says millionaires don't, but billionaires do? And I think I think humans have studied astrology, astronomy, you know, for all these kinds of areas of the universe we've studied throughout time. I think it's weirder now that people say things like, do you believe in or do you think? And it's like, yeah, absolutely, I do. I don't know. Like I say, I'm not going to claim to be an expert. I'm not going to claim to understand it. But I have had people around me and I've had mentors in the past who've helped me in that area. And yeah, I do.
I think with stuff like that, it's just because, you know, if you actually think about the majority of the stuff, if you are on your phone and you are looking at things on social media, whether that be Instagram or that be YouTube or that be Twitter or anything, everything you're reading has been produced and published in the past 24 hours. And it just stays like that every single day, where, you know, there is almost nothing now that is new and sticks. Like even films and stuff, all they do is just recreate old films now. When was the last time a film came out and everyone said that is going to be an absolute classic? And it's just like this churn of new things. And I feel like people are just yearning for some lessons from the past or something timeless that they can really sink their teeth into and stick to. But yeah, that's my...
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's just the way society is going, though. It's very much when Nietzsche said God is dead, you know, he didn't go ha ha ha, God is dead. He was basically saying what's going to be man's sort of long-term purpose. What are we going to be driven by? What are we going to be? And yeah, mate, I think you're. No one's thinking long-term. No one's thinking anything outside of here and now, right now, and that's what just creates this world that's all just gone short-term. Everything expires fast, basically. That's why there's about 28 Fast and Furious films.
Yeah.
Very true.
If you were to leave a message right now to that camera for your newborn baby that she can watch on her 18th birthday, what would it be?
Can I get her first?
Go on,
So
get
for
her.
the message. Right, wait there. I'll get her. I'll bring her over. Because if I'm going to do a message, I'll bring her to the message.
So cute.
There you go. So I guess now I've got the pressure on. I should have used that time to think of a really good message. But no, it's not really a message just for her. Like if I was to give a message for any little child really in today's world, it would literally just be that same thing. Take risks in life. You can be whoever you want. Like genuinely, I hope when she watches this when she's 18, I mean, I might be homeless. And it might have all gone wrong. I doubt it. Hopefully we'll be watching this together on a yacht somewhere in Santorini, and we'll achieved all of our life goals. But I think for me, it's just understand that your daddy's locking in now. Like, seriously, my journey's not stopped. It's about to start. Like, we're locking in. This next 6 or 7 years, they're going to be busy for us. But yeah, I want to give her a life that she's never, that I never had, certainly. And I think that, I guess, for 18-year-old you, if you're to watch this, 'cause I might get hit by a bus. Like, this is a cool thing. Like, this might be something that she can just go and achieve something with your life. Go and make me proud. Go and help other people. She'll do that. See, she's looking at me as I'm saying this, and she's saying I will do that. So just have that motivation, and let me be the voice in your head now at 18 that tells you you're not allowed to slow down. You're going to change the world. I'll give her back to her mum. Here you go, pal.
Maybe in 18 years' time, we'll run it back.
Yeah,
We'll have had about
definitely.
hundreds of guests on.
Definitely.
That was beautiful, man.
It was.
That was
But you
really
see,
nice.
she's so relaxed. Like, the kids are just so relaxed. The whole environment, everything's just chill. Like, she's been here an hour and a half. Like, there is just no stress at all. It's cool.
I think one thing I want to ask you, I know, to be honest, I kind of know the answer to it as well, but it's just what makes you happy in general. What is the thing, if you could narrow it down to a core few sentences, what is it that makes you happy?
Having a mission, having a purpose. You know, I live my life like it's in story mode. I think man is happy when he's busy, when he's working towards something, when he's moving towards a goal. You know, I'm even on a family perspective. I've got a vision of a big, happy family, loads of children, moving around, running around in the countryside, swimming pool, you know, with my business goals, with my mind, my body, my fitness goals. I'm not going to say I sit there like, yeah, I'm so happy, but I just exist in a state of moving towards goals. It's like I'm a GTA character that's always on a mission, and my life's in story mode. And I think that's the truth. Like, a lot of people that don't have this mission or this purpose, that's when they end up living hedonistically. They end up buying things. They end up in this, you know how many closers I have that come up to me that say they're on 20 grand a month and they've just got no purpose and no mission, and they don't know where it's all going. Like, genuinely, I think that's the big thing. The thing that keeps me happy is just always having this mission, like, and always working towards it. When I don't have that, that's when you're just on a whim. That's when your emotions are there for the taking.
Do you think you have like a pinpoint moment, like a moment you can remember? It might be a bad night you had when you were like, right, I'm going to do this. And then your mission was kind of, because you know, you are on this mission now. And I don't imagine that, you know, you were in a pretty bad place before you started all this stuff. So can you pinpoint a moment or a feeling that you had when you thought, this is what I want to do now in the next
All the
phase?
time I was grounded. That it was when I was a kid. This is how long this started. I mean, there's two big points in my life. There was the childhood, and then there was the point when I was bitten by the spider, and that was like a big turning point for me at 24. So the childhood, I mean, when I was sat in my room grounded all of the time, I can't explain to you guys, like, as much as you've thought about eating, I've probably thought about being a billionaire and growing up and changing the world. Like, genuinely I have. I used to sit there grounded in my room, and all I had was videos or books of heroes' journeys. So I would just sit there for hours watching like Hercules on repeat, or reading Harry Potter and reading about these men that had grown up, achieved great things and just gone and conquered. So I always had this ambition. I think that's what got the spark going. Then I went off the rails when I got married and divorced in my early 20s. But then I got bitten by this spider bite that literally killed me. I was in hospital for 2 weeks. I really thought I was going to die at that point. And I think when that happened, and COVID, which I knew was just a load of bullshit, like when these things happened to me, that basically put me in this mindset where, look, there's no time to really waste anymore. Like, seriously, you always were this kid that had this ambition, that had the worst start in life, which basically meant all my stress was front-loaded. I've been through more shit at 18 than most people will go through at 80, but that's a good thing. Then I sort of went off the rails a little bit, 24, 25, but then I came back and attacked it with such a rock-solid mindset. And I think now my brain's just like, there's no time to waste. There's no time to waste. It's like someone's told me the world's ending in 10 years, and you've just got to go for it. There's no fucking time to waste now. This is it.
This is the last one that I've got. What do you think people will say about Jordan Rassas when you're not here anymore?
Depends who you're asking. I think the reality is, and it depends when you're asking them. I think hopefully by the time I've achieved whatever I'm going to have achieved on this planet, hopefully what they'll realise is that I ultimately sacrificed my life, my body, my own time on this planet for people in the future. You know, genuinely, be that my kids, be that people around me, be that people in my home country of Palestine. I think ultimately the one thing I want is for people to know who Jordan Rassas is 200 years after I die, but then B, for that to be a positive memory, and for people to say, bloody yeah, there's a guy who, you know, I walked around Rome recently. I took my missus and my dad, and I was there for 4 days, and after one day, I just took myself back to my hotel room and didn't leave again. And I said, you guys can just enjoy Rome now. I can't look at another statue of a guy. This is just it's like making me depressed. I need to just lock in. I need to change things. I need to build things. I need to help people. How have these men done this? And I'm just sat here like I can't. So for me, it's that. There's so much about the world that I think is broken. So for me, if 200 years after I die, people can A, remember me, and B, associate me with fixing some of them things, then that would be a bloody good start.
Dude, you're a great man. We look up to you a lot, and we really appreciate having you on.
Appreciate that.
It's been another amazing episode.
Sick.
Dude, honestly, you are a massive inspiration to not just us, but probably the lads over there and all the lads in your community. And yeah,
Can't tell how excited we've been for this episode, to be fair, honestly. It's funny because a lot of things we've spoke about today as well, me and Charlie have had like conversations about similar topics over the past week, because we've kind of both...
We've been on FaceTime till like 1 in the morning every night this
night.
week talking about it. So yeah, we really appreciate you, dude.
No, it's good.
It's
I love doing it. Like I say, I think a big thing right now is I always said if I achieve the things I want to achieve, I'll try and just throw out the positive stuff I needed to. And I think the world right now, it is in a weird place. You know, there's wars going on, there's conflict everywhere, there's a lot of hate, there's a lot of stress. And I genuinely just think people, our generation now, or the younger generation, they just want to lock in. They just want to find their purpose. And deep down, they just want to build something. They just want to have that family. You know, half the people that give me abuse over the stuff I'm posting, deep down, they just want that. And I think now's the time to get it.
Dude, I'm sure we'll see you again soon. This is going to be a frequent thing, but we really appreciate you, man.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, thank you.